Shabbat Shalom. I grew up in a house deeply devoted to the Jewish calendar. I don't mean to brag, but there wasn't a minor fast I couldn't name. Second day Chag, who's arguing? Another chance to go to shul. Of course you need a day called Shmini Atzeret, which is like Sukkot, but not Sukkot, where you eat in the sukkah, but you don't recite the blessing while eating in the sukkah. I couldn't imagine a calendar without it. These are our holidays, and we love them in all their glory. But growing up, for all the devotion to the Jewish calendar, there was a cautious distance from the non-Jewish holidays. I'm not talking about Christmas and Easter. It was clear in my family that those weren't our holidays, but those who celebrated should do so in good health. And I'm not talking about the American holidays, July 4th, MLK Day, Thanksgiving, which we celebrated as an expression of that distinct part of our identities. It was the Christian or pagan holidays masquerading as American holidays. Those brought out the highest degree of suspicion. Now, I love my parents, and I'm grateful for my upbringing, so I'm sharing this with no ill intent. And you can ask Ilana, these holidays remain a topic of vigorous debate in our household. But you have to understand, growing up, it wasn't just that we didn't dress up for Halloween. That's what Purim was for. We would turn off the lights in our house, signaling to the outside world our unwillingness to participate in this unsavory, idolatrous holiday of deceptive tricks and treif treats. So instead, we would go to the back of the house and play parcheesi. Okay, now that I have offended half the room, I should also say that Valentine's Day was not observed in my family. No objection to love. It was the saint part of Saint Valentine's Day that made it off limits in my family. Now, when you're courting your partner, who I met on the auspicious day of Hoshana Rabbah, and you say 4 months into the relationship, I don't believe in Valentine's Day, you have to be prepared with a sensible fallback position, which I was, namely, but I do believe in Tu B'Av, which, my friends, is today's date on the calendar. So happy Tu B'Av. All right, let me explain. Tu B'Av, not to be confused with Tu B'Shvat, is a minor Jewish holiday known in Israel as Chag HaAhava, the Festival of Love. It's a popular date for weddings, partners exchange flowers and cards, and matchmaking events are scheduled. One such event, organized by Aish, Partners in Torah, and Corona Crush, yes, that's the name of a virtual dating website, boasts of 6,500 singles getting together for an evening of, quote, guided values-based video dates. But this holiday is not a modern invention. Remarkably, it actually appears in the Mishnah, a different era of matchmaking. The Mishnah describes the custom on the 15th of Av in the Second Temple period as follows. The unmarried daughters of Jerusalem, dressed in white clothing, would go out and dance in the vineyard and proclaim to the gathered onlookers, "Young man, lift up your eyes and see what you choose for yourself. Do not set your eyes towards beauty, but set your eyes toward a good family. As the book of Proverbs states, Sheker hachen vehevel hayofi, grace is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised." See, guided values-based dates. All right, there are clearly significant problems attached to this scene, which I'm happy to talk about over lunch, but it directly supports the notion of Tu B'Av as a day of love, a worthy alternative, right, Ilana, to Valentine's Day. And this story, the dancing in the vineyards, is what I knew about Tu B'Av until I discovered a much stranger, much deeper explanation for this supposedly minor Jewish holiday. You ready? All right, in Mishnah Ta'anit we read, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said, Lo hayu yamim tovim liYisrael, k'chamisha asar b'av u'chiyom kippurim. There are no days as joyous for the Jewish people as Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. Whoa! That's what you're feeling right now. It's whoa! First of all, you gotta love the inclusion of Yom Kippur here. I know we don't always think of Yom Kippur with its chest beating and fasting as joyous. But the Talmud is not taken aback by the mention of Yom Kippur. Bishlama Yom Kippurim, of course, Yom Kippur. Mishum de'it be'slicha u'mechila, because it's a day of pardon and forgiveness. But Tu B'Av? Just think for a moment, what could have been written here in the top 2 days of joy? Shavuot, the day of receiving the Torah. Pesach, the day of liberation from Egypt. So what is so special about Tu B'Av that it should receive such high praise? What follows in the Talmud is 6 different answers to this question, none of which, by the way, is the story of the women dancing in the vineyard. Although each answer is worthy of its own sermon, I'm going to move quickly through the first 5. Number 1, on the 15th of Av, the ordinance restricting intertribal marriage was lifted. Meaning, for example, someone from the tribe of Reuven could now marry someone from the tribe of Shimon. Number 2, on this date, the tribe of Benjamin, which had been excommunicated for horrendous behavior in an earlier time, was readmitted into the community of Israel. Number 3, on Tu B'Av, Hoshea ben Elah, the last king of the northern kingdom, reopened the roads to Jerusalem, lifting a 200-year roadblock established by a prior king, preventing pilgrimage to the temple. Number 4, in the 40th year of the Israelites' wandering in the wilderness, on Tu B'Av, the dying of the generation barred from entering the land of Israel finally stopped. And number 5, the Jews killed by the Romans at the Beitar fortress in the Bar Kokhba revolt were permitted to be buried many years later on the 15th of Av. Okay. I don't mean to minimize the significance of any of these events, but I wouldn't blame you if you still felt like there was a gap between, quote, the most joyous day and these answers. Which brings us to the 6th response, which is the strangest of them all, and, interestingly, the only one brought by 2 rabbis, not just one. Rabbi and Rav Yosef say, the 15th of Av was the day in which they stopped chopping down trees for the sacrificial altar in the temple. Yom shepasku milichrot etzim lema'aracha. The Talmud, sensing that there might be questions about this, explains that the 15th of Av is essentially the summer solstice, meaning every day from this moment forward, there will be fewer sunlight hours. Therefore, any trees that are chopped down after the 15th of Av will not have enough time / exposure to sunlight to properly dry out. And wood that is not properly dry might have worms in it, making it unfit for use in the altar. So, it seems the celebratory nature of this event is connected to the completion of a task that is integral to the functioning of the temple. So we have Yom Kippur and the end of wood-cutting season. But then, a third rabbi weighs in. Rav Menashe said, and they called the 15th of Av, Yom Tevar Magal, the day of the breaking of the axe. Now that's interesting. Why the need to break the axe? Wouldn't it have been sufficient to simply put the axe away, store it in the shed? Sure, the season for felling trees and chopping wood is over, but next year, the season will return, and with it, the need for an axe. But so significant was this act of breaking the axe that the day itself, the 15th of Av, is renamed for this deed. So what is going on here? These three rabbis, I believe, understand the inherent danger of the axe. A tool of iron, the material of weaponry in their time. Iron, we read in Mishnah Midot, was created to shorten man's days. When it has a proper channel of use, the cutting of wood for the altar, it serves its sanctioned purpose. It enables the sacrificial system in the temple to function. But the moment it is no longer needed for its justified use, its destructive potential is what remains. The axe becomes a dangerous tool without a proper outlet for its use, a tool that could be used for great harm. And the allure of a destructive tool within reach of the one who knows how to yield it is too strong to trust. So it's not enough to simply put it away for the season. You break the axe so that you don't turn to it when it's improper to do so. You break the axe so that you don't use it when other tools are actually what's needed. You break the axe because once its constructive purpose is complete, it only leaves a trail of destruction in its wake. Yom Tevar Magal, the day of the breaking of the axe, is a profound conceit. While there is a time and a place for the use of a destructive tool, be very careful. It exerts an irreparable power, not only on the world around us, but on the one who holds the tool. It is seductive, promising to solve the problem when too often its ill-timed use creates new ones. So we celebrate our ability to discern when the time for the axe has ended, and we break it apart, a public ritual for all to see and internalize. In the Talmud, the tool is the axe. But there's a principle being taught here about the things in our life that, when serving their purpose, are beneficial, but outside of that context, are remarkably dangerous. I wonder what comes to mind for you. What concrete objects or ideas, stories, emotions are necessary in one season but destructive in the next? I'm thinking about opioids. When prescribed by a doctor after thorough assessment to a patient suffering from severe pain, this powerful medication can restore quality of life to someone in a debilitating moment. It serves a beneficial purpose in a particular context, but we all know the shattering consequences of this tool beyond its prescribed use. And so it's not enough to simply put the extra pills in the medicine cabinet. The allure is too strong, too consequential. The axe must be broken, because when the tool is used at the wrong time, what was once constructive becomes destructive. I'm thinking about anger. For many of us, a particularly sharp and double-edged emotion. Anger channeled toward a proper outlet in the right time, the right place, can be a force of tremendous good in the world. We even have a name for it, righteous indignation. It can be the tool that moves us to fight for justice. But anger, when misdirected, anger, when another tool ought to have been used, ruptures relationships. It can tear it all down. I'm left with the question, is it enough to store it in the shed? Or is the self that is habituated to anger in need of a more fundamental breaking of this tool, a greater distancing from its destructive capacity? So we return to the enigmatic Mishnah, the claim that there are no days as joyous as Yom Kippur and Tu B'Av. And I'm starting to believe that the two aren't so different from each other. It's the joy of starting over, of turning the page, creating distance between ourselves and our destructiveness. It's the joy of believing once again that who I was does not define who I can be. It's the joy of putting down the tools that harm ourselves and others, breaking patterns and committing to new ones. It's the joy of doing everything you can to be someone different this time. And that is what makes it worthy of being called Chag HaAhava, the day of love. Shabbat Shalom, happy Tu B'Av.